Superman, Leviathan, Rising Special, written by a whole bunch of people. Brian Michael Bendis, Matt Fraction, Greg Rucka, Marc Andreyko, art by Yanick Paquette. So this big comic is the prelude to the big Leviathan event that's going to be crossing over with a whole bunch of stuff. And it's sort of tying into Bendis' work on Action Comics, and it's also setting up a whole bunch of storylines for the future. Like, we're going to have some sort of a Jimmy Olsen book and a Lois Lane book, so it's going to be sort of interesting seeing how they're going to set them all up and see how those books end up playing out. I've been reading Action Comics. I've been relatively enjoying it. I've been interested in this Leviathan story so far. It's very kind of mysterious. You have all of these different groups in the DC universe, like the DEO and Spiral. We also have Amanda Waller thrown in here, and Talia al Ghul. And there's this new mysterious black woman with this half moon necklace who apparently owns the Daily Planet now, and she has some sort of nefarious goals we don't really know much about. There's this red ghost woman, and we're going to find out more about her as well. She plays into this story. So there's this mysterious group, Leviathan, and they've sort of been attacking all these different agencies in the DCU, and we don't really know what their end goal is. And this issue is sort of setting some of that stuff up and setting up the event. Okay, so let's dive into the story in this issue. So the book opens up and we have that black woman with the moon necklace, and her name is Leon, and she has bought the Daily Planet. Now, in Action Comics 1006, we were introduced to her, and she is some sort of criminal, and she's operated in secret in Metropolis all these years right under Superman's nose without sort of garnering any attention from him. And she even writes on a piece of paper to communicate sometimes, because she's sort of paranoid that Superman is listening for certain key words. So for example, if she says the word kryptonite, Superman will just hear that, even in just normal conversation, and he will sort of go to that location. So she never says those sort of key words that might trigger Superman. And I think she's a very compelling character. You know, she's so smart, she's so careful, she's so calculated, and we don't really know exactly where she plays into the overall plot and all these villains going on, but she's definitely an intriguing character. And we learn this issue through her conversation with this guy who has a sort of facial masking technology. We learn that her father is someone who is very powerful. We don't know really who he is yet either. So moving away from them, we go over to Superman, and he's flying around, and he senses there's a team of people waiting for him back in his apartment, and they probably want to kidnap him as Clark Kent. They probably don't know he's Superman, but there's like some sort of team waiting for him there, and he goes over to talk to Lois, and he's telling Lois he's going to allow whatever this team is to kidnap him. He's going to allow them to kidnap him so that he can sort of learn some information, maybe even write some sort of news article about it. And Lois is kind of joking that Clark is a terrible actor. You know, how are you going to fake being kidnapped? And whatever, Clark's like, no, I'll be able to handle this. So Clark shows up at his apartment, and we're going to let this team take him down, right? So this team, they tase him. Clark goes down, but he's really hamming it up. He's like, oh God. And he's sort of like wiggling on the floor, and these kidnappers, they're like, what is he doing? I don't know. I've never been hit with one of these. Hit him again. So, you know, I thought this was a funny scene. I know people hate Bendis sometimes, and sometimes Bendis makes some questionable storyline decisions with Superman, but I mean, this was a funny written scene, and I thought it was pretty in character with Superman. So, you know, sometimes I like Bendis, and I'm going to defend Bendis from all the haters. Sometimes I totally get where people are coming from, though. Okay, moving on. Clark is kidnapped by Talia al Ghul. So Talia al Ghul is behind these people that were there to kidnap Clark Kent. Mind you, none of these people know that Clark Kent is actually Superman, but they want to use Clark Kent as bait for Superman because they know him and Clark are really close. So they strap a kryptonite vest to Clark Kent so that when Superman comes, you know, Superman will be not at full power, However, of course, they don't know Clark is Superman, so Clark is getting weaker and he's not feeling so good because of this kryptonite, and his whole pretend to get kidnapped plan is kind of backfiring. So Lois Lane is at home. She's waiting for Superman, and Superman's not arriving, and she's getting kind of worried. Lois also receives some weird text from Jimmy Olsen, and Jimmy is like, "Have you seen Clark? By the way, can I have $10,000? And Lois is like, "No, Jimmy." And then Lois calls in Batman and Wonder Woman. Okay, then we sort of have an interlude of the story, and we're following Jimmy Olsen for a bit. Matt Fraction is going to be writing a whole Jimmy Olsen series coming out soon, so I believe he's probably writing this part of the story. So Jimmy is in this place called Gorilla City, and apparently the night before he got drunk off this gorilla champagne, and he got married to this random woman named Jix. And it turns out this Jix is some sort of space dimension traveling thief on Earth to steal some gems. And, they both got drunk last night and accidentally got married. But she tells Jimmy that, you better get this marriage annulled. And then she sort of takes off. And she also says that, by the way, there's this weird blue cat in the bathroom. So we go see this blue cat in the bathroom. I wasn't sure who this cat was at first, but it turns out it's that cat, Dexstar, which, if you know your comics, he's this Red Lantern cat. And these Red Lanterns, they're always sort of vomiting blood, so that's going to come into play later. So Jimmy has torn clothes, his wallet was stolen by this Jix woman, and his passport, so he's kind of screwed. How is he going to get home? And this is where he sort of texts Lois asking where Clark is, as well as for $10,000, which is what we saw earlier, so we're sort of tying back into that. And then this weird blue cat in the bathroom vomits blood over everything, all over the place, because it's a Red Lantern cat, and that's what Red Lanterns do. So then Jimmy takes off with the cat, and he's trying to get home, and he's trying to save Superman, because, Superman seems to be missing. So then we have some sort of Supergirl interlude in the story, which I kind of skipped over. I didn't really find it was that vital to the story. But jumping back over to Superman now, we see this weird masked figure, and he shows up to confront Clark Kent. And this masked figure is probably this Leviathan, and he's wearing this weird mask and this red cape. Anyway, he removes the kryptonite vest from Clark Kent and leaves. Why did he do this? We'll find out more later on in this issue. Clark Kent struggles to get over his kryptonite poisoning. Even though the kryptonite is gone, it really did affect him. Then Lois Lane, Firestorm, Jimmy Olsen, and Dexstar show up, and they somehow have tracked Clark down, and they save him. Now back at the evil guy's headquarters, they're in this flying ship in the mountains, and we see this Leviathan guy with the weird mask and the red cape and the whole costume, and he's talking to Talia al Ghul, and he's asking her why she pulled this stunt kidnapping Clark Kent earlier. Is she trying to antagonize Superman in the middle of their whole plan? Is she trying to draw attention to themselves? He further explains, you don't try and fight Superman or threaten him, because when Superman sees what we have been building, it's something that Superman and all the heroes have been fighting for and dying for their whole lives. They will join us. So this Leviathan has some sort of plan that seems nefarious, but perhaps all the heroes will be behind once they fully understand it. Very intriguing. So he ejects Talia al Ghul out of their flying ship to her supposed death, because she's sort of, gone rogue, and he can't have her part of his whole plan anymore. So, this is the part where we're a little silly. Somehow Superman is flying there at that exact time, and he sees Talia falling, and he saves her. Anyway, Talia gives zero info on everything, though, and Superman flies and takes her to prison. Now we jump back over to that mysterious black woman, and she's partnered with that rad ghost woman from earlier in Bendis Action Comics run, and they're working together. They're in cahoots with Leviathan, it seems like, and she's sort of hinting at some of her future nefarious plans as a new owner of the Daily Planet. And this issue ends with Clark, Lois, and Jimmy all back at the Daily Planet working on some sort of story. I thought this issue was pretty fun. It was a very long issue, setting lots of stuff up. I thought it was good that if you haven't been reading Action Comics, run previously. They're sort of explaining enough so you can jump into this whole Leviathan event when it comes out without being too lost. So I thought they did a pretty good job on that. I thought there was a lot of fun stuff in this story. I thought there was some interesting moments. I liked the Jimmy Olsen stuff. I particularly love quirky characters sort of getting solo books, so I'm excited for that. And I like Matt Fraction as a writer, so I think that's going to be good. And yeah, I'm excited for this Leviathan event comic and some of these spin-offs, and I thought this was a good time. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10.